1 second, our YouTube live streaming will successful within hardly 10 seconds.
Hello.
Our YouTube live is successful.
Can we start, sir?
Please.
Continue, madam.
Please.
Good morning, all dear delegates and participants. I'm delighted here today to welcome all the members on the occasion of workshop on plagiarism. On behalf of SPDM Art, Science and Commerce College, I'm Dr. Manjusha Kesharao Ahirrao, working as a librarian in our institute and the coordinator of this workshop. I'm pleased to welcome to Honorable Chairman of our institute, Bhauso Dr. Tusharji Rande, who inspired us to organize such a type of workshops in the memory of Dr. Karmavir Annababa, the former founder, president of our institute. I also pleased to welcome Honorable Principal Dr. S.N. Patel sir, who always inspire and encourage us to organize such a different types of workshop, conferences and seminars also. I am also pleased to welcome to Honorable Vice Principal Professor D.V. Patil sir, Dr. M.V. Patil sir, and convener of this workshop, Dr. Bhakkar sir. I am pleased to introduce such an eminent resource person, Dr. Kanchi sir, a triple postgraduate in philosophy, education, and library and information science. Dr. Vijay Srinath Kanchi obtained his PhD in philosophy based on the research on dream consciousness and its ontological and epistological implications. He is on the verge of completing his second PhD on manuscript conservation. He has been teaching the subject philosophy to the undergraduate and postgraduate students for 15 years, published 6 books, of which one book titled Sri Sita Ramajena Savadam, and is a translation and commentary in English on the rare treatise of yoga published in Telugu language about 200 years ago. His book Sleeping to Dream and Dreaming to Wake Up has received financial assistance from the Indian Council of Philosophical Research, New Delhi, for the publication, and he is published by Decay Print World, New Delhi. Dr. Kanchi presented several research papers on international fora such as Berlin, Chemins, Madrid, Tapai, etc. He is at the age with information technology, cognitive neuroscience, as much as he is ancient civilization of Indian philosophy. He is the member of Board of Studies in Philosophy in about half of dozen of Indian universities. And he is nominated as a member of Faculty of Humanities, Kavaitri Bahinabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon. He is also the member of Board of Studies in Civil Services, Kavikul Gurukul Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtek, Nagpur. He is also the member of Advisory Committee of North Maharashtra University's Pratap Philosophy Center, Amalner, and again he is the member of Board of Studies in Philosophy, Rashtra Sant Tukdoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, Nagpur. He is also the member of Board of Studies in Philosophy, Kavaitri Bahinabai Chaudhary, North Maharashtra University, Jalgaon, and again he is also the member of Program Advisory Committee, School of Health Sciences, YCMOU, Nasik. Again, he is the editorial board member of Global Scholar Journal of Social Sciences. So I'm very welcome to all dear participants and delegates, and thankful to all of them to join such a nice workshop. Now,
Bhakkar sir.
I'm welcome to Honorable Dr. S.N. Patel sir, Honorable Principal Dr. S.N. Patel sir, for a few words.
Yes, madam.
I would like to invite Dr. S.N. Patel sir, please guide us. for this workshop.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
I am very delighted to have such a nice person with us as a resource person. I, on behalf of our institute, management, and all our staff, I thankful first to Kanchi sir for accepting our invitation. Sir, we are organizing series of workshop webinars to provide the requirement of IQAC as well as in the future coming NAC. So this is one of the useful workshop for us, and every researcher and a teacher community must know about the plagiarism and how that plagiarism can affect their research work and their presentation in the paper as well as books. So every studious person has importance of plagiarism, and he must know the method of checking of the plagiarism, how that can be avoided, and how the original research material can be put forward for the uh, publication. So I again thankful to Kanchi sir for accepting our invitation, and I am sure that he will give our his own experiences and his knowledge, share the knowledge with us, so that our researcher and all participants can enlightened by him. So I extend my best wishes to the webinar, and I am again thankful for the organizer to give me a chance of speaking for few words. So best wishes to the webinar. Thank you, madam, and thank you, Kachi sir and organizer.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Now, I would like to welcome Dr. Kanchi sir to start our session.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ahira madam, for the kind
Thank you,
words
sir.
and the encomiums that you have showered on me while introducing myself to the audience. I'm so grateful to you. Thanks a lot. And first and foremost, before I start my presentation, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Principal Dr. S.N. Patel sir, Professor D.B. Patel sir, Vice Principal, Dr. M.V. Patel sir, Vice Principal, and very importantly, to Dr. Ahira Manjusha madam, the librarian of the college, SPDM College at Shirpur, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to discuss about certain important aspects relating to plagiarism, citation techniques, and if time permits, maybe even we would well into the concept of copyright issues, and how it is related to plagiarism and other aspects also. In fact, madam has already conveyed to me that my presentation may ideally be of a shorter duration and may not be too exhaustive, because the audience may not find it, audience may not have the patience to listen to any presentation that extends beyond 1 hour span. But at the same time, I would like to insist that I'm going to present a couple of very important things which I consider are of utmost importance for any researcher to know, so that he would not be a victim of being alleged as a person who has done plagiarism. And secondly, it is also equally important for all of us to know the intricacies and the interrelation between plagiarism, copyright, and the methods in which you are expected to cite any research article or any publication in your research journal. So keeping all these things into consideration, I may probably go a little beyond 45 minutes or maybe 1 hour's duration. I request all my participants to kindly give me a patient hearing. I will assure you, whatever the information that I am providing is going to be authentic, completely reliable, and very useful throughout your career. So with this a few short words, once again expressing my gratitude to Principal S.N. Patel sir and Ahira Manjusha madam, I would like to start my presentation. Madam, please do confirm if my PPT is visible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Great, great. If my PPT is visible, I would straight away proceed with the presentation. In fact, I would like to have a clarification on the language or the medium to be used for the communication. मैं हिंदी में
Yes,
भी
sir.
थोड़ा बहुत बोल सकता हूँ और अंग्रेजी भी
Okay, sir. As you
So I would try to use a mix of both the languages because that will be convenient for both the participants within Maharashtra, and maybe I have seen that there are certain participants from outside Maharashtra as well, even from South Indian states also, to provide equal opportunity for all the listeners. I would like to mix my presentation in both Hindi as well as in English languages. Here we go. Dear friends, today we are going to discuss about the plagiarism and its relation to citation technique. When we are talking about plagiarism and the citation technique, you would be wondering, what is the citation technique to do with the plagiarism? Plagiarism, obviously, most of us know that if you plagiarize anybody's work as your own work, it is considered as plagiarism. यानी अगर फॉर एग्जांपल मैं अहिरा मंजूषा मैडम का या किसी और का वर्क को मेरे वर्क के रूप में अगर मैं प्रस्तुत करना चाहता हूं एंड उस वर्क का जो है क्रेडिट मैं लेना चाहता हूं, then it is considered as plagiarism. So obviously we know this aspect of plagiarism. So naturally this question would crop up in our mind, that how is it related to citation techniques also? But dear friends, we need to understand, if we fail to cite a thing properly, it amounts to plagiarism. And in fact, at least it's generally estimated that almost 30% of plagiarism or alleged plagiarism is because of poor citation by the researcher. I repeat, approximately 30% of instances where it is claimed that this is a plagiarism material is because of improper citation or lack of proper knowledge regarding the citation by the researcher. So it is vitally important for all of us to understand what tantamounts to plagiarism and how to save ourselves from the burden of being alleged to be a plagiarist. Second, what is the right way of citing any research paper or any communication that you receive and which needs to be cited in your work. So here we go. Whenever we come across this particular expression, plagiarism, a lot of similar concepts would begin to clutter in our mind. For example, we may come across the sense of morality, ethicality, the information, citation, Chicago style, APA style, copying, or maybe copyright. These similar kind of issues actually crop up in our mind. In fact, this is a concept in the gray zone of most of us, in which we know the concept, but we are not really sure about the contours. यानी उसकी जो है क्या कहते हैं, उसका जो दायरा जो है हमें ठीक ठाक मालूम नहीं है. हमें अंदाजे से मोरलेस पता है कि ये प्लेगियरिज्म होता है, अंदाजे से ये पता है कि ये कॉपीराइट कहलाती है, लेकिन we are not really very sure what exactly are the contours of the plagiarism, what exactly are the contours of what you call citation, what exactly are the contours of copyright. And there are many myriad other things also, like Creative Commons license, open source software, free software, GPL license. There are myriad other things. So today we will try to understand all these issues as much as possible, as long as the time permits us. First and foremost, let's first try to define what is plagiarism is. Most of us are already familiar with this idea of plagiarism, and we know that if I am reproducing two important statements, one, exact words. Suppose if I borrow your idea and paraphrase it in my expression and then give a citation to you, then it is not plagiarism. But if I completely use your same expression, your own language, your own expression, and then borrow it and unlawfully use it as my own creation, then it is called plagiarism. So there are two aspects. One is reproducing the exact words or sentences and ideas of the source material. But what is more important is without acknowledgement. This is something very important. अगर हम credits नहीं देते हैं, तो जो है ये plagiarism का जो है एक मसला बनता है. Unfortunately, most of us have this very wrong notion that if I cite somebody as the source of information, I am absolved of the sin of plagiarism. No, it's not really the case. There are other intricate issues also concerning the plagiarism. What are those issues? We are now going to see. First and foremost, we need to understand that broadly speaking, there are two ways in which ए प्लेगरिज्म इज एक्चुअली कमिटेड बाय अ रिसर्चर। या तो वो इंटेंशनली क्रिएट जो है प्लेगरिज्म करता है, या सेकंड ऑप्शन जो है वो अनइंटेंशनली, मतलब वो जानबूझ के नहीं कर रहा है, बट अनइंटेंशनली ही कमिट्स द एक्ट ऑफ प्लेगरिज्म। व्हेन इट कम्स टू अनइंटेंशनल प्लेगरिज्म, उसके लिए माफ है, मतलब इसके लिए माफी जो है मौजूद है। You may not be punished for that unintentional plagiarism, and probably you can be even absolved of that such a crime, even in a court of law or wherever. The penalty may not be levied on you if it is proved beyond doubt that whatever the content was plagiarized was absolutely unintentional. ये बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है। दूसरा किस्म का है या दूसरा प्रकार का है जिसे कहते हैं इंटेंशनल प्लेगरिज्म। अगर आपके नियत में ही ये जो है ये खराबी है कि आप इंटेंशनली किसी दूसरे के वर्क को आपके वर्क के नाम से प्रेजेंट करना चाहते हो, देन उसके लिए कोई माफी नहीं है। You will be punished, you will be penalized, and the penalties range from very small punishment to very severe punishment also. कितना हद तक ये पनिशमेंट जा सकता है वो भी डिटेल्स हम देखने का प्रयास करेंगे। Now the question would be, how is that somebody does an unintentional plagiarism? कैसे क्या कोई unintentionally plagiarize कर सकता है? दोस्तों हमें समझना होगा कि आफ्टर ऑल वी आर यूजिंग व्हाट इज नोन एज द फैकल्टी ऑफ माइंड। हमारे दिमाग को हम यूज करते हैं किसी भी वर्क को हम क्रिएट करते हैं। हमारे दिमाग के दो इंटरेस्टिंग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है। One of the important characteristics of our human mind is the ability to visualize, is the ability to create things. This is in a psychological parlance is known as confabulation. You can create a story. For example, मैं अगर आपसे कहता हूँ कि कोई कहानी बताओ यूं ही, आपके घर में आपके बच्चे अगर आपसे कहते हैं कि मम्मी और पापा you please narrate a story to me, you would create a story from your cup without making any much effort. How is it possible? Because the human mind has the ability to create things. तो confabulation करते टाइम पे कई बार क्या हो जाता है, हमारा दिमाग दूसरा इंफॉर्मेशन जो कई सालों से या कई महीनों से या कई अलग अलग संदर्भों में से इंफॉर्मेशन को जो इकट्ठा किया है, उन चीजों को अनकॉन्शियसली वो जोड़ के एक कहानी को क्रिएट करता है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ यू आस्क मी टू क्रिएट ए स्टोरी, व्हाट वुड बी द कंटेंट ऑफ द स्टोरी? ऑल द कंटेंट ऑफ द स्टोरी वुड बी दोज थिंग्स व्हिच आर फेमिलियर टू मी। यानी अगर मैं या तो एक जंगल का नाम लेता हूँ, एक शेर के बारे में बताता हूँ, एक कौवे के बारे में बताता हूँ, या इंसानों की बस्ती के बारे में बताता हूँ। So all the characteristics of the story which I am creating are necessarily borrowed from some place. So what I'm trying to impress upon all of you is the fact that even though anything that you are trying to create with your mind is basically dependent on the information that you have accrued over a period of time from different sources. तो इसके कारण से जब आप अलग अलग जगह से इंफॉर्मेशन को आपने सोर्स किया है और उसके बेसिस पे आपने एक सिस्टम को या थियरी को या किसी भी एक पॉइंट को प्रेजेंट करने का प्रयास किया है, तो ये अनइंटेंशनली जो है आप प्लेगराइज कर सकते हैं। ये पॉइंट है। सेकंड इंपॉर्टेंट कमजोरी जो है दिमाग का जो है, ये पहला जो है पॉइंट जो है, ये दिमाग की क्षमता है, द एबिलिटी टू क्रिएट ए थिंग बेस्ड ऑन different data that it has borrowed from different sources over a period of time. Another important aspect is, or another kamzori, a kind of a shortcoming of the human mind is that it has the tendency to forget things. हम कई बार जो है कोई गाने को याद रखते हैं, लेकिन वो कौन सी फिल्म का है ये हमें याद नहीं रहता है, या किसी व्यक्ति का से जो अपना इंटरेक्शन है वो हमें याद रहता है, लेकिन उस व्यक्ति का नाम हमें याद नहीं रहता है, या वो कौन से कॉलेज को बिलोंग करता है हमें याद नहीं रहता है। दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एमनेशिया। एमनेशिया इज द फॉरगेटफुलनेस ऑफ द ह्यूमन माइंड। देयर इज दिस कॉन्सेप्ट कॉल्ड क्रिप्टो एमनेशिया इन साइकोलॉजिकल पैरालेंस। व्हाट इज क्रिप्टो एमनेशिया? Whenever you borrow a thought, an idea, or a tune, or a name, what actually happens is you forget the source, and at some point of time, maybe after over a period of time, 4-5 महीने के बाद, 1 साल 2 साल के बाद, उसी पर्टिकुलर चीज को आपका मन ऐसा आपको बताता है कि ये खुद जो है आपका मन ही क्रिएट किया है, because you have forgotten the source from which you have borrowed this idea or this thought or maybe some musical tune or a name or anything or even a joke. तो उसके कारण से, क्रिप्टो एमनेशिया के कारण से कई बार हमें लगता है कि अरे मुझे एक आइडिया अभी मुझे क्लिक हुआ है, चलो इसे मैं इमीडिएटली एक न्यूज़पेपर आर्टिकल के लिए मैं बनाता हूँ। इनफैक्ट ये अच्छा आइडिया जो है एक्चुअली ये मेरा नहीं है, ये मैंने कभी तो भी सुना है कई सालों पहले, और वो पॉइंट को कहाँ से मैंने सुना क्या है ये ठीक ठाक मुझे याद नहीं है, अभी मैं भूल गया हूँ। जैसे उस चीज को मैं रिट्रीव कर रहा था, मे भी शायद सोते टाइम पे during the course of dream or whatever, it is possible that I retrieve the data, but I forget to associate it with its source. वो जहां से आया है उस सोर्स के साथ मैं एसोसिएट करना भूल जाता हूं और मैं सिर्फ उस पॉइंट को याद रखता हूं और अचानक मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि ओह दिस इज माय ब्रिलियंट क्रिएटिव आइडिया, दिस इज द क्रिएटिव आइडिया ऑफ माय माइंड. सो दिस इज आल्सो इक्वली पॉसिबल. सो दिस वे unintentional plagiarism also takes place. Let's all remember this, and that is the reason why it is very important to give a benefit of doubt to the researcher and probably take his argument from a positive perspective before you directly allege कि सर कैसे क्या आपने ये सब plagiarize किया है. Instead of actually looking at it from a negative perspective, it is possible. The ideal situation would be to give a benefit of doubt to the researcher and probably see whether he has intentionally plagiarized or the intention was absolutely unintentional and unoffensive. This is something very important we all need to remember. Now, the UGC guidelines that have been released in the year 2016 for PhD, you all must have gone through this. It gives very specific instructions to contain the acts of plagiarism or illegal copying and borrowing of ideas by the researchers from other research activities or some other research outcomes. Particularly जो principals are इस program में बैठे हुए हैं, मैं उनके notice में ये point लाना चाहता हूँ कि सर जैसे आप शायद आप जरूर जानते ही हैं कि हमें UGC के recommendation के अनुसार किसी भी higher education institute में कम से कम 2 committees को जो है गठित करनी है. At least 2 committees are to be constituted. One committee is considered as the departmental level committee. For example, if your college has, let's assume 20 departments, each department should necessarily have one committee which would check the integrity of the academic research that is produced by that particular department. And apart from this departmental committee, there should be one institutional level committee also to supervise and ensure that ethical practices are followed by the researchers of the institution. So these 2 committees are known as Departmental Academic Integrity Committee and Institutional Academic Integrity Committee. इसका basic structure क्या होता है ये भी हमें 1 मिनट हमें सोचना होगा. It is mandatory by the year 2023, यानी 2 years from now, it is going to be necessary that any research output produced by the research scholars of that particular institution will have to be necessarily routed through that DAIP as well as IAIP. If DAIP and IAIP do not clear that particular research paper, the researcher will not be permitted to publish his research article in any research journal. This is going to be a mandatory thing. So constituting these 2 committees is going to be of very great significance for all the institutions. Now, as regards to the departmental level committee, the HOD will naturally function as the ex officio chairman of that committee. He will have to elect 1 member, not from within his department, अपने department से नहीं, किसी दूसरे department से, a person of eminence, a person of substantial contribution to research. उस प्रकार के किसी senior academician को उनको चुनना है, and he will have to be added as a member of that committee. Second member, ये बड़ा important है, इस विषय पे हमें सबको ध्यान देना है. A person well versed with anti-plagiarism tools, we shall have to be nominated by the HOD. दोस्तों, मैं आपको ये पॉइंट बताना चाहता हूँ. प्लेगरिज्म के बारे में, साइटेशन के बारे में या कॉपीराइट के बारे में किसी भी हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूट में अगर कोई भी विषय के बारे में उसके बारे में क्लैरिटी अगर चाहिए होता है तो the only person to be relied upon, ideally speaking, is the librarian of that particular institution. Let's all admit this fact and let's all appreciate this fact also. A librarian is expected to be capable of understanding the intricacies of plagiarism, understanding the intricacies of the citation, and even support and help the researchers to find the material that they are looking for and help them to properly cite them in their research papers. So इसलिए जो दूसरा member जो होगा, a person well versed with anti-plagiarism tools, etc. Ideally, he will have to be the librarian of that particular institution. जहां तक IAIP का सवाल है, यानी इंस्टीट्यूशन लेवल का एकेडमिक इंटीग्रिटी कमेटी का सवाल है, उसमें भी चेयरमैन जो है, ऑब्वियसली अगर वो यूनिवर्सिटी हो तो प्रो वाइस चांसलर या डीन होंगे या हायर एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन के प्रिंसिपल होंगे. मेंबर्स में जो है एक सीनियर एकेडमिशियन जो रहेगा जो प्रिंसिपल चुनेंगे और इसके अलावा 2 और मेंबर्स होंगे. एक मेंबर को जो है नॉमिनेट किया जाएगा उस इंस्टीट्यूशन के हेड के माध्यम से, एंड अगेन द सेकंड मेंबर will have to be a person well versed with anti-plagiarism tools and techniques, जैसा टर्निटिन है, उर्किड है, इस प्रकार के ढेर सारे टूल्स हैं जो हम डिस्कस करने ही वाले हैं।
Excuse me, Kanchi sir.
Yes,
I'm extremely sorry to interrupt you. But majority of our audience is from Southern India, and they are. It is very difficult for them to understand whatever you are speaking in Hindi. So could you please continue the session in English? That will be great.
Happy. In fact, absolutely no issue. But at the same time, since there are certain participants within Maharashtra, and Madam, the coordinator of this particular program, Ahirrao Manjusha Madam, has requested me to see to it that the presentation is bilingual. So I was in fact trying to present a bit of my ideas in Hindi also. But no issue, we would continue with the English presentation.
Yes, also, yeah, also there was one more concern from audience side, that there is a kind of echo happening at your side. Can you please check if you are logged in from two sources?
No, I don't think, Mr. Miligan.
Okay.
No, in fact, is the echo still coming? Is
Yeah,
the voice echoing?
for few of the participants there is an echo. For other half of the participant there is not an echo. So okay, you can continue the session, sir. We will try to fix it if there is any.
I think yes. And in all likelihood, probably the issue, whatever the glitch that you are claiming, must be at your end or maybe at the audience end, because I have logged in from only one system only, and the possibility of echo being created at my end is not really very high. That's what
okay, sir, no problem. Just continue the session in English, and thank you so much. I'm really sorry to interrupt.
No issue, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you. I would continue to give my presentation in English till such time anybody raises an objection and wants my presentation to be again bilingual or maybe predominantly in Hindi. Till such time, I would continue with my presentation in English. Great. Now the topic is that, as we have been discussing, the very important aspect, which is going to be a mandatory one by the year 2023, because 2022 has been identified as the deadline to stop the gaps as far as what you call morality and ethical issues concerning the research activities in the higher education institutions are concerned. So by the year we would enter into 2023, in all likelihood, we are going to be confronted with the situation wherein every higher education institution will be forced to create departmental level academic integrity committees as well as institutional level academic integration committees. So those people who are office bearers in the various colleges and institutions may kindly take this matter seriously. Now, another important aspect, what actually constitutes to plagiarism? Now, this is sourced from the Turnitin website. Turnitin, as you are all aware, is one of the leading players in recognizing or identifying the similarity index. In fact, any software, whatsoever it could be, whether it be Turnitin or whether it could be Urkund or any other software, they are only trying to look at the similarity only. And what they would produce is what is known as Similarity Report or a Similarity Index. At no point of time they are going to tell us that this is a plagiarism. Available at so and so. This particular information that I'm going to present before you is hello, is my voice audible?
Yes, sir. I think there is some internet issue at your side because we cannot see your screen, your shared screen. Yeah. Now I think.
Now?
Yes. Now it is visible, sir.
Yes. Sorry. Anyway, we'll continue with our discussion. There are, at least broadly speaking, there are 10 kinds of plagiarism adopted by various researchers, either intentionally or unintentionally. But we are going to focus on those intentional plagiarism attempts by the researchers, which would constitute to some criminal act on the part of the researcher, and owing to which he can be penalized. First and foremost, the gravest of all kinds of plagiarism is known as cloning. Cloning is simply you are creating a replica of what is already created by a researcher. And what you would do is you would simply change the title of that particular book or the particular research paper, and even change the name of the author to your name, and send it across for publication to a research journal. Now, this research journal, if for whatever the reason, if it fails to recognize this particular work as already been published elsewhere, would publish this particular article under your name. Now, this is called cloning, and this is viewed with high severity, and the punishment is also very severe in these cases. Just to give you an information, at least there are 2 books available in my college library, which are absolute clone copies of 2 other works. So at least I know of 2 researchers who have produced 2 books, 2 different researchers, 2 different books. Even the content and even the subject matter is also different. But they have completely cloned 2 different works, and they have claimed that this work or this book is their brainchild, which actually is not. The second kind of plagiarism is Control C. You try to copy the information from some source, and then you try to incorporate into your research paper. That is called Control C, copying. Again, that is also a grave or severe plagiarism. Find and replace it. Most of the times, you come across this kind of a plagiarism technique that is adopted by many researchers. What they do, instead of, for example, there is a case study that is carried out at in a place called New York in USA. Let's assume I would replace the word New York with Pune, or maybe Mumbai, or maybe Hyderabad, and wherever the occurrence of what you call New York takes place in the research paper, that is replaced with Hyderabad or maybe Pune or Mumbai. And then I would create the entire case study as though it has been carried out or it has been studied in a local area within the confines of India. So that is called find and replace. Remix is you are trying to collect information from at least 10 different sources. For example, what you do, you are trying to write a research paper, let's assume, on bibliometric studies. Now what I will do, I will go to ResearchGate or maybe some other like a Google Scholar or some other site, wherein I would search for this keyword bibliometric studies, and then I would be presented with at least 1,000 what you call search responses, out of which I download 10 research papers, and then what I will do, I will take some paragraph from one research paper, another paragraph from another research paper, third paragraph from third research paper, and so on. I would jumble them up, I would mix them up, mash them up, and present it in such a fashion as though this is my own new creation. This is called remixing. And even this recycling is also generally practiced by many researchers. What they do, they publish an article in the year 2015. But when the situation demands that they need to be presenting a paper in the year 2021 as well, they do not find the necessary time and patience. And instead, what they do, they would fall back on their publication in the year 2015, take out that particular paper, change the title a little bit, maybe the first paragraph and the last concluding statement or last paragraph, and then present it again as a new contribution from the researcher. This is called recycling, and recycling is also equally an offense. Whenever you submit your research score for the API team, and if it is found that it is a recycled material, it can constitute to taking some action on such a researcher. That is very important. Next, hybrid. In hybrid, what actually happens is the researcher prefers to cite a couple of things and does not cite other material that he has borrowed from other sources. So there will be a couple of instances where the citation is done, couple of instances where citation is not done. When the citation is not done, it is presumed that these are the ideas of the researcher himself. So this is called a hybrid kind of a thing. Mashing up is also very similar. When you are trying to do when you try to borrow ideas from different sources and mash them up and create something like जैसे खिचड़ी जैसे हम बनाते हैं, the similar kind of a thing when you are trying to do is that is called mashing up. And another important thing is 404 error. For example, you cite a web resource claiming that the Journal of maybe Library and Information Science has published this particular article written by Mr. So and so, and you cite this particular web reference. But when the web reference is practically checked, it is found that such a file is never uploaded on their website, or even that particular website does not exist. This is called 404 error or file not found error. What he is trying to do, what in this particular case the researcher is trying to do, is that he is trying to trick the reader that he is citing a source which is really present as a web source somewhere. But in fact, there is no such web source. It is all his own mental creation. He is trying to present his ideas as though this idea has been attested or presented by some other researcher and which has been uploaded by him or by her on one particular website. That is called 404 error. Another important issue would be RSS feed. This is very important. For example, if you cite a particular thing in the year 2017, now the website must have changed tremendously over the period of last 4 or 5 years. Now, if you want to go and try to access that particular page, that page may not be available owing to the fact that the website is basically a dynamic one where the changes continuously take place. So this RSS feed is a situation when you cited something, but that particular cited material is no longer hosted by the website on their web page. This is called RSS feed. That is the reason why it is vitally important for all of us whenever we are mentioning the citation, the reference list at the fag end of our research paper. It is important to mention whenever it is a web resource, you should mention that it is retrieved on so and so date. That is very important because of the fact that if the website changes also, you would be in a position to retrieve the back page based on the cache. I'm sure you all are aware of cached web pages. So you can probably help yourself by trying to access the cached web pages of 2017 and then show to the community that yes, this paper was indeed available in the year 2017, but by the year 2020, this paper is no longer hosted by the website. That's the point. And retweeting is again, the idea is already presented several times by several researchers, but you are trying to present as though it is your own innovation and it is own mind creation. That is what is known as retweeting. You are simply copying and borrowing the ideas from somebody else, and the idea is also quite familiar to everybody, but you are making an attempt as though it is your own creation. So these are considered as the 10 most commonly practiced plagiarism techniques, rather, by various researchers in preparing their research papers. Okay, now next important aspect. What are the consequences? For example, if a researcher is found to be plagiarizing the material or the content of other researchers, what are the penalties and punishments recommended by the UGC? There are 4 basically levels. If the level 0 is called absolutely no plagiarism, no issue at all. If the similarity index written by plagiarism detection softwares is less than 10%, then it is called absolutely safe zone. It is shown in green, and if it is less than 10%, it is absolutely allowed. And this is considered a minor plagiarism. And maybe your guide or maybe the recommending authority may suggest that भाई वो 2-4% का भी जो भी है ना उसको भी थोड़ा आप change कर लो. At the most, that is the only recommendation that you might be getting, but absolutely it is in the safe zone. Level 1 is between 10 to 40%. Now most of the universities have reduced it to 30%, but actual leeway that is allowed is up to 40%. But such students will be asked to revise and resubmit their thesis or their research paper again, so as to present it in a different fashion. So level 1 is 10 to 40%. But generally, what really happens is the revised text will be expected to be submitted within the 6 months, of the period. That is important. And if the plagiarism content or the similarity index is found to be more than 40% and below 60%, it is considered as a serious plagiarism issue. Now it has been reduced to between 30 to 60%. Earlier it used to be 40%, but now most of the universities prefer to stick to the number 30% only. Such students will be debarred from the submitting a revised script for a period of 1 year. if the research scholar is found to be committing such a crime, he will be debarred from resubmitting his thesis for the next 1 year. And suppose if it is a reputed publisher like Francis and Taylor, or maybe any other Springer or any other reputed journal, they may blacklist you and they may not accept any research paper from you for the next couple of years. And if it is more than 60%, the registration of that particular candidate for his PhD or maybe MPhil, no, MPhil is no longer in vogue. So the registration would be cancelled if it is found to be more than 60%. This is called level 3. Level O, level 1, level 2, level 3. These are the 4 levels that are mentioned in the UGC 2016 guidelines. Now, it is also equally important that there are certain things which are to be necessarily excluded from this dogma, for this, I beg your pardon, from the stigma of plagiarism. What are those important issues that are to be excluded from plagiarism checking? The recommendation is that all quoted works, if you have quoted in double quotes, they are to be overlooked. They are not to be checked for similarity. All references, bibliographies, table of contents, preface and acknowledgements that are written by the author, they are not checked for plagiarism. Why is this particular aspect is important? When a particular thesis or anything is fed into any plagiarism detection software, the person running that particular software, who happens to be in all likelihood the librarian of that institution, he should know this important fact. He should untick those areas such as table of content, preface, acknowledgement, bibliography, and double quotations, etc., so that the software knows that these are the things that should not be checked for similarity. If the person checking this, what you call the report, is not familiar with these issues that are to be excluded, the similarity index would be very high, and then the researcher is unduly punished for what is supposed to be a genuine case of exclusion. So this particular aspect may be kept in mind. And very importantly, all generic terms, laws and standards and symbols like E is equal to MC square. Everybody is familiar with E is equal to MC square, or maybe AC square is equal to AB square and plus AB square and BC square. We are all familiar with these basic propositions. So those propositions which are already known to everybody. India got independence in 1947. These kind of statements, these need not be checked for similarity index. This point is to be kept in mind. Now, many people ask me, what are the plagiarism detection tools that are available freely in the on the web, on the open market, on the internet? The point is, gentlemen, please remember, ladies and gentlemen, the issue is any software that is free software comes with some shortcomings. The first and foremost shortcoming is that these free softwares have very limited database. Because their database is very limited, the score that they give you is generally very positive in numbers. Like there is no plagiarism found in your work. Or they may say only 2%, 5%. But when the same research paper is fed into another software like Urkund or Turnitin, which is a paid version and which has a very large database, maybe the same research paper may result in a similarity index that may be even upwards of 30%. So please remember, do not rely on free software for checking your plagiarism. It is only a superficial checking only. All said and done, finally, you will have to rely on those databases or those software which have a very large database. For example, Urkund is considered as one of the PDS, plagiarism detection software, with the largest database available across the globe. Even Turnitin is also reasonably good. So this is very important. There are other free softwares also, like such as Drillbit. Drillbit is one thing, plagiarism detector, and even plagiarism.org. But there is a restriction. Normally, they will not check anything that is more than 5,000 words. Or most of them even have this restriction limited to only 1,000 words only. So there is a practical limitation. Every time you will have to copy only 1,000 words, feed them into the software, check for plagiarism, then take the 1,000 words away and feed in the next 1,000 words and check for the plagiarism. So it's going to be tiresome and cumbersome also. And very importantly, the results that you get from this free software is not completely reliable. This is the aspect we need to remember. And what are the penalties for the plagiarism? Friends, this is very important. We should all remember. Anything that is around 10% would certainly invite a kind of a warning from the research guide or that authority, like a research committee of that particular higher education institution. They would inform the researcher that yes, your content has plagiarized material, or if the similarity shown in your paper is reasonably noticeable. So you are recommended to be more careful and probably revise your work so as to avoid any sort of punishment or penalty. Point number one. This is the lowest that can happen. Second, for example, if a student submits a research paper for his budding research project, or maybe any research journal, in-house research journal published by the institute, then he can be awarded 0 marks or no credit, or that particular publication may not be published in the in-house journal. That is also equally possible. And for example, if a research report is expected to be submitted by the postgraduate student in his 3rd semester or the 4th semester, and if it is found that the content that is submitted is plagiarized, then the student may be failed in that particular course or may be suspended from that particular course. And in severe cases, even the degree that has been awarded almost 3 years ago, 5 years ago also can be withdrawn. Please remember this very importantly. Generally, we have this very wrong notion that if I somehow manage to escape from the scrutiny at this point of time, and if it is submitted and if it is accepted, I am safe. No, it's not really so. You may be fortunate enough in the year 2021, but your fortune may go wrong in the year 2025 or maybe 2030, and somebody may raise a point and you can be penalized, you can be subjected to punishment even at a later date also. That is very important. And we are all familiar with a couple of cases even within Maharashtra also. People holding very responsible positions in the universities have also been kind of demoted or even removed from the services, having found that their works have been plagiarized. Rather, they have been practicing plagiarism to produce their research outcomes. We are familiar with those cases. I do not want to name the instances specifically, but that has been witnessed in the last 5 to 6 years also. We are all familiar with those cases. Now, the person, if he is holding a post, he is holding an office, he can be discharged, dismissed, or maybe expelled also. So those of us who have already committed such a sin, I recommend them to withdraw that particular research paper or that research outcome, whether it be a book or whatever, from the mainstream, and also not claim them in their respective APA evaluation also. Please see to it that that is no longer claimed. Because if you claim and if you get rewarded for that particular research outcome owing to such a claim, you are liable for penalty at a later time also if it is found. This is a thing we need to remember very clearly. Now, there are certain techniques adopted by various researchers to escape this similarity check. See, my intention is not to give you those shortcuts or those techniques with the help of which you can cheat the plagiarism detection software. No, this is not my intention. My intention is to tell you that if you are a research guide, you should see to it that your student does not do this kind of a mischief and create a situation where you are also put to trouble. So, for example, what is a general rule of most of the PDS is that if there is any similarity of 14 consecutive words or more, similarity of 14 or more consecutive words, it is called similarity. It is called similar. The report is considered as a similar report if the words are more than 14. This is a fact of Turnitin and even for Orkand also. So, what people do, they would copy the material up to 10 words and then change the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th word or maybe some words in between to synonyms, a word which is having equivalent meaning, and then try to present it as their own idea. even then also, there are some artificial intelligent software that are being mooted and devised of late. So these will be in a position to identify, even if you try to cheat the system with this kind of a technique. Using synonyms is the most common technique adopted by most of the researchers to claim that this research is their own baby or their own creation. Mashing up, creating a couple of things from different sources. And other interesting aspect, what they do, instead of writing, for example, instead of O, they type 0, control, C, instead of O, they type 0, C, 0, NPR, 0, L. Now, this is not read as control by the software. It considers this as some sort of a gibberish. So because it is a gibberish or unintelligible word, this is not counted in the plagiarism detection software. In the similar fashion, instead of L, they type 1, or instead of 1, they type L. So at a general glance, it appears that it is 1010. But if at a closer inspection, you would know that it is in fact not 10, but it is L0 typed. Because of which the number 10 is not caught by the plagiarism detection software. And instead of S, they type $, the symbol of $. So these are the techniques that people adopt. But you may adopt this kind of contrivances or this kind of devices, but they are not going to be long lasting. You may be safe, you may be fortunate today, but tomorrow you could be in a real soup. So let's not indulge in these unethical practices. All said and done, what is very important is, let's not do cut and paste at all, at any cost of time, at any cost, at any point of time in our career. This is the sum and substance of my presentation as far as the plagiarism is concerned. Now, I would like to discuss a little bit about citation styles also, because there is this close affinity between citation techniques or the citation style and the issue of plagiarism also. Now, in fact, how many citation styles are there? If I ask this question, can anybody give me a rough estimate? Can anybody tell me how many citation styles are in vogue? Just to make this presentation a little more interactive. Can anybody give me a rough idea? If my voice is audible. Well, I'm not receiving any response. Can anybody speak up? Well, hoping that my voice is audible to all of you.
Yes, sir, your voice is audible.
Okay, great. Well, I will give you the answer. You may be presuming probably that the citation styles could be maybe around 10, 20, 30, 40, or approximately upwards of 50, not more than that. But to tell you, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, the fact is there are more than 916 known citation techniques available in the world. So everybody was adopting their own citation techniques. Every university, particularly in the Europe and the America, they used to create their own citation style and recommend their students to submit their research papers in their particular format. So at least there have been close to upwards of 950 citation styles that were in vogue at one point of time. Now, see, this is a real clutter of information, which will be of no use to any researcher. So people have thought of streamlining citation styles, and as of now, there are prominently less than 10 citation styles that are in vogue, that are appreciated by one and all as a standard citation styles. Now, every subject has its own specialization, its own way of presenting the ideas and facts. So if you are belonging to social sciences, your citation technique would be different. And from the citation technique recommended for people belonging to languages like Marathi, Hindi, English, etc. And similarly, the social sciences citation or the linguistic citation would be different from engineering citation or medical citation or science citation. And I will try to present a couple of important aspects as far as citation styles are concerned, because citation style itself is a very lengthy topic to cover, and it would take completely 7 hours of presentation to cover reasonably the various intricacies of citation styles. Now, let me talk about the Chicago style. Chicago style is the most highly used, most prevalent citation style as far as book publishing is concerned. For example, if you are writing a book based on a serious research, your publisher may recommend you to submit your manuscript in Chicago style. Even though you could have written it in APA style or MLA style or in some other style, he would rather ask you to recast it into Chicago style and present it and resubmit it to the publisher. What is Chicago style? Chicago style is the style that is adopted for general readers. I may not be an expert in physics, but I'm interested in physics. So if somebody is writing some book to familiarize ordinary folks like me with the intricacies of physics discoveries of 20th century, the physicist is expected to write his book in Chicago style so that it is easy, comprehensible, and easy to understand. And as regards to social sciences, into which our library science also falls, our library science subject also falls, we are all expected to write our research articles in the APA citation style. APA is American Psychological Association. There is another style called MLA style, which is called Modern Language Association. This is the language, this is the citation style recommended for all those people who work in various language environments like Marathi, Sanskrit, Hindi, Telugu, Russian, etc., etc. If your work is basically linguistic in nature, your citation style recommended is MLA style. What is this Turabian style? Turabian style is a style that was devised and developed by the Canadian universities, particularly in late 80s to early 2000, up to 2010 approximately. This is called student citation style. Turabian style is called student citation style. It incorporates all the important elements of standard citation techniques such as Chicago style or maybe APA style, but it is very simple, very easy to learn. So it is meant for the students, and it is actually conceived and designed keeping the students in mind. So Turabian is the most simplest and easiest style. For example, if the postgraduate student of your college is to be introduced to the citation techniques, what you can do, you can start them by introducing the basic elements of Turabian style. Once they are familiar with the basic concepts of Turabian style, then probably they can be introduced to the higher order concepts such as which are present in APA or MLA or other Chicago or other styles. Vancouver style is the style that is generally used in medical scripts, medical manuscripts. You might have seen certain statements with a superscript of numbers, 1 as a superscript, 24 as superscript. Now, this particular style is generally practiced in the medical parlance or in the medical world, wherein the researchers are expected to follow the Vancouver style. Now, as regards to Chicago style, I have already explained. This is a common style used in everyday publications like magazines, newspapers, and books. APA style or American Psychological Association style. And there is another ASS style also, which is also known as American Sociological Association style. These are all the two styles that are recommended for researchers belonging to social sciences and even for humanities also to some extent. Now CSE, this is for the physical sciences. There is called a Council of Scientific Engineers, if I'm not wrong. There is such a council that is available. They have devised this CSE style for physical sciences. And ACS style is obviously for the chemistry researchers. And American Medical Association style or the AMA style, and even the Vancouver style is also the much recommended styles for articles published in medical sciences and biological sciences. And as regards to the research in law, Blue Book is the standard citation style recommended for law graduates or law researchers in the legal profession. Okay. Now, as long as MLA style is concerned, we are familiar that anything that is concerned with the literature, etc., are recommended to use MLA style, and Turabian, which I have already discussed. Now, let me give you a couple of important insights as regarding the citation rules are concerned. Basically, there are two things that we need to learn. Anything that is cited has two important elements. One element will be within the text of the researcher. For example, if the researcher wrote a research paper of spanning 7 pages, Now, the text contained in those 7 pages may contain many instances of citation. Such a citation is called in-text citation. In other words, for example, in the introductory page, in the introductory paragraph of my article, I may cite Dr. Ahirrao Manjusha Madam's article published in some newspaper or published in some journal. So this particular citation is called in-text citation. But this is not going to be exhaustive. It will only contain the name of Madam Ahirrao as Ahirrao, comma, year of publication as 2018. Let's assume. But the complete details, the complete bibliographic description of this particular thing will be found, which is called the second aspect of the citation, will be found at the fag end of my research paper in the reference list or the works cited list. So any citation will have 2 elements, one within the text, the other at the fag end of the text. So these are the 2 important things that we should know. The material or the content that is present within the text is known as in-text citation, and that is present at the fag end is known as reference list or the referenced content. Okay, this is important to remember. And as regards to direct quotations within the text, there are certain important rules. And there are other important rules for paraphrasing also. What is paraphrasing? If I am borrowing an idea from somebody and trying to present it in my paper, I can paraphrase those ideas with my own language, in my own language. That is called paraphrasing. If I completely borrow the idea as well as the expression, including the language and the words used, then it is called a direct quotation. So this distinction needs to be maintained. The one possibility is directly quoting verbatim, word by word, sentence by sentence of another researcher, and then giving the name. This is called direct quotation. The other option would be paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is I will simply borrow the idea, but I will reconstruct the sentence in my own language. This is called paraphrasing. So these are the 2 possibilities. As far as the in-text citation is concerned, whenever there is this direct quotation, I'm borrowing the idea verbatim, including the expression in the language from some other researcher. Please remember, if I'm doing a direct quotation and if it exceeds more than 4 lines or 40 words, generally whichever is higher, more than 4 lines or more than 40 words, what I'm expected to do, I need to make it contrast with my text by making it specifically placed and positioned in an indented paragraph. In the sense, for example, अगर मेरा article जो है double space में लिखा हुआ है, if my article is written in double space and it is occupying a width of, let's assume, 9 centimeters from left to right. Now this indented paragraph will have to be positioned so that from both sides 1 centimeter is taken out, and instead of double space, I will use single space when if it is more than 4 lines. This is something very important we all should remember. That means to say, I am trying to keep it highlighted within my text. My regular text is running in double spaces with 8 centimeters width. But whereas this particular direct quotation, which is running more than 4 lines, will be highlighted in such a fashion that it is indented on both sides, maybe spanning to only 7 centimeters or 6 centimeters. And then even the spacing between the lines is reduced to 1 line. This is very important. If it is less than 4 lines or less than 40 words, what is to be done? You can continue with within your text as a continuation. You do not have to make a separate paragraph for that. But please remember, whenever you quote a direct quotation, the exact page number should also be necessarily mentioned. This is something very important we should remember. For example, take the example here. Now I have mentioned here Avasti 2019, comma, P.229. What I'm trying to say, I am borrowing the idea of one Mr. Avasti verbatim for more than 4 lines that is published in 2019. And what is that particular book? What is the title of the book? Who is the publisher? All those details will be available in the second part of the citation, which is present at the fag end of my research paper in the list of the reference, in the reference list. But if you open that particular book, in the page 229, you will find this exact expression verbatim. So whenever I am quoting a direct quotation, even if it is more than four lines or less than 4 lines. If I am quoting verbatim, line by line, word by word, I will have to necessarily provide the exact location, including the page number. This is something very important we should remember as far as in-text citation is concerned. What happens if I don't provide the page number? It would tantamount to plagiarism. This is what is called unintentional plagiarism. See, you have quoted Avasti, his publication in 2019, but you have not mentioned page number 229. This would also constitute to plagiarism because of the fact that you are expected to provide the exact location if you are making a direct quotation. This is one important point we all should remember. Hope my expression is clear to all of you. Second, as far as in-text citation, there are two or three ways in which in-text citation can be carried out. For example, mention only the year in brackets if the author's name is included in the text. See the example. According to Kulkarni, now I am already directly explicitly taking the name of the author from whom I am borrowing the idea. So according to Kulkarni, now in brackets, I will only mention the year 2003. There is a steady rise in the technological interventions in the modern libraries. Now, this is a paraphrased expression. I am not directly quoting. Because I am not directly quoting, I am not writing them in double quotes. Point number one. Second, since I am using my own expressions, yet I am bound to mention the name of the author from whom I have borrowed this idea. I have borrowed this idea from Kulkarni's book or the journal article published in 2003. And what is the idea? There is a steady rise in the technological interventions in modern libraries. This is the point. So whenever I am making use of the author's name directly in my regular text, all that I need to do is I will have to simply put a bracket and use the appropriate year of publication of that particular research outcome. Now, I do not want to mention the name of the author directly, but I'm mentioning it as a passing reference. Then see how it is going to be presented. Steady rise in the technological interventions in modern libraries is reported by many academicians. Now, this is my statement. I'm simply trying to say steady rise in technological interventions in modern libraries is reported by many academicians. But what is the proof that many academicians are reporting this kind of a steady rise in technological interventions of the modern libraries? Here I give the proof by mentioning the name of the author, comma, 2003, year of publication. In the earlier instance, Kulkarni is outside the bracket. In this instance of presentation, the Kulkarni and the year are both are brought inside the bracket. I hope this distinction is clear to all of you. This is important. Another important point. If the quotation is directly from the borrowed source, direct quotation, including the expression verbatim, then I will necessarily mention the page number besides the year of publication. Avasti, 2019, page number 229. This is how the in-text citation is to be done. If we flounder or if we flout this very simple rule in our citation, it could unnecessarily put you into some sort of issues relating to plagiarism. People may accuse you of plagiarism, and then you will have to tell that, oh no, I do not know the rules of citation, and because of which, though I intended to give the credit to the author, I could not do it in the proper way, which is really very embarrassing. Okay. And another important, what if there are two authors? As we are all aware, if there are more than one author, names of both the authors are to be presented, like Reddy and Shastri, 2005. What if the authors are 3? What if the authors are 4? What if the authors are 5? The APA style recommends that up to the authors of 6, all the last names of the authors are to be necessarily mentioned even in the in-text citation also, if it is up to 6 authors. So Patil, Reddy, Shastri, Avasti, Mundada, Ahirrao, etc., etc. The last name will be written and Ahirrao, for example. If it is up to 6 words, 6 names, the 5 words will be separated by commas, and the 6th word would be separated by and from the rest of the last names. Okay. Et al will be used for and others. But this will be applicable only when the authors are more than 6 in number. This is important. And what if there is a personal communication between two parties? For example, let's assume that Ahira madam informs me about some very great development that has taken place in her college. And she says that, sir, we would like a joint paper on this particular thing. Or I would like to give you some inputs for your research paper. But these are inputs from my side. She has communicated to me through, let's assume, an email. Even that personal communication is also to be necessarily cited. This is very important. If I don't do that, and if Ahira madam can prove that I have borrowed the ideas from her personal communication through email, but I have not acknowledged her, and if it is proven, I will be found guilty of plagiarizing the ideas of Ahira madam. Okay. So even if it is a personal communication through telephone, even if it is a personal communication through email or a casual conversation, but if it can be proved that it has really taken place between two individuals, it is expected to be mentioned, cited, or acknowledged in the research outcome of the researcher. This is something very important. Now, to slightly dilute the discussion, I will ask you a couple of questions, which normally I encounter whenever I make a presentation on citation techniques or plagiarism. I will ask this question to all of you. First question, should I correct the wrong spelling when directly quoting? For example, I'm trying to quote Ahira madam's paper for more than 4 lines or 5 lines, or maybe even 2 lines. But Ahira madam's work has some spelling mistake. Let's assume, only for convenience, I'm just giving an example. तो क्या उनके जो spelling जो है, उस स्पेलिंग को मुझे करेक्ट करना है, या मैं एक्सपेक्टेड टू करेक्ट द स्पेलिंग, और शुड आई नॉट करेक्ट द स्पेलिंग? एनी इनपुट्स फ्रॉम एनी ऑफ द ऑडियंस as regards to direct quoting?
Sir, you can check the answers in the chat box. People are actually answering the question, and it says no.
Okay. Yes, as a matter, save time, I will ask the question and I will give the answers also. You can check for yourself whether you are already familiar with this particular answer. The issue is, whenever you are directly quoting any expression from any other author, if the author committed any mistake, the same mistake needs to be replicated as it is, because you are directly quoting. But there is this practical difficulty. People may mistake that you have also not identified that particular spelling error. Your readers, the readers of your research paper, may think that unhone galti ki hai, and even this person has also failed to recognize the spelling mistake. So to avoid that, what is to be done is, you will have to mention SIC in brackets wherever you found that mistake. This expression sick is basically mentioned, is used in English language to show that I have found out the mistake, but since I am not expected to make any corrections, I am simply pointing out that I am aware of an instance of mistake at this particular place, but I am not correcting it intentionally. To convey to your reader that you are intentionally not correcting the mistake, this expression SIC in brackets is used. Okay. Second, how to cite internet sources. Please remember, this is very important. In the later part, that is in the reference list, you will anyway say sourced from so-and-so place or accessed from so-and-so website and retrieved on so-and-so date. That's okay. But within the in-text citation, within the in-text, how will you cite an internet source? This is something that is very important. Please remember, whenever you are citing an internet source, it does not have page numbers, is it not? If it were to be a book, I can say the page number 29. But what about the internet resource? For the precise reason, what is recommended is, you will have to count the paragraph number and mention it as para 5, para 29, para 231, and an internet source, comma, para 231 within the in-text citation. Please understand, there are two different aspects of citation. One is in-text citation, the other is the actual bibliographic description of that citation. I'm not talking about the bibliographic description of the citation, which is presented at the fag end of the research paper. I'm talking about the in-text citation. Whenever you are citing any internet resource, you will have to explicitly mention the paragraph number also. Okay. Next, should written or email correspondence also to be cited? Yes, certainly. Even if it is a telephonic conversation also, that is to be acknowledged. If it is not your idea, you are expected to cite the source of information or the source of that illuminating idea. You cannot absolve yourself of the sin if you don't cite. Okay. Should figures, illustrations, graphical materials also to be referenced? Certainly. If you are borrowing any images to substantiate your argument from any source, please see to it that that is copyright free material. Point number one. Second, necessarily mention the source or mention the credits to so and so. You should necessarily mention all material that is borrowed, whether it is figures, whether it is graphs, or whether it could be any illustration, imagery, whatever. Please ensure that a proper citation is given, acknowledgement is given. Should I quote my own published articles? This is also very important. Is it important that I should quote my own articles which have been published earlier? Yes, it is very, very, very important. I will take the classic case, one important case. In one of the central universities in South India, those participants from South India may know the instance that I am quoting now. In one of the central universities in South India, way back in 2015 and 16, when there was a heavy degree of turmoil within the university owing to suicide of one student, the entire university has split into two groups. One pro vice chancellor, one against the vice chancellor. Now the group which was against the vice chancellor, they were trying to corner the vice chancellor, and they have delegated this responsibility to one postgraduate fellow, and he sat in the library. He took the CV of the vice chancellor and all the research articles claimed by him. Now they were checking for any scope of plagiarism. They searched and searched and searched for almost 15-20 days, all his 130 articles or so, but they could not find any plagiarized content. But finally, they could lay their hands on one article in which the vice chancellor has utilized the material of his own article published some 3-4 years before. But he has not acknowledged that this article was written by him 3-4 years ago and published in some other journal. He thought probably that it is my own baby, so I can use that idea freely without actually citing the source, because I am the product of that, I am the creator of that particular work. So it was, they have found this particular thing, this instance, and they have reported to the Ministry of HRD. So Ministry of HRD was forced to constitute a committee, and they have asked the Vice Chancellor to appear before them, and they have asked, this amounts to self-plagiarism. So you are subjected, you are expected to be subject to punishment. Then the Vice Chancellor pleaded not guilty, claiming that this is absolutely unintentional because I am not aware that my own work needs to be cited. I thought since it is my own work, I don't have to cite it. So he was given a warning letter stating that though you are unaware, with the benefit of doubt that you are unaware of this basic fundamental rule of self-citation, we are freeing you without any penalty, but you are warned to be careful in all your future instances. I'm just trying to share this point to give you the gravity of the situation. There would be a lot of enemies for you in the society. Some may not like you prospering in your career. So what they can do, they will invest a lot of time, try to figure out if there is any instance of plagiarism done by you in any of your articles. And once they find, they will send a letter to your Vice Chancellor or any governing authority, and the governing authority has no other option but to take action on you if it is found that you have plagiarized. So please see to it that you would never ever do plagiarism. Next, what is the relation between plagiarism and copyright? If time permits, I would like to get into very important aspects relating to plagiarism, provided the audience have sufficient patience. And is there any good reference management tool? I strongly recommend to avoid unintentional mistakes committed by the researchers. I strongly recommend all the researchers to use reference management tools such as Zotero or maybe EndNote or maybe what is that third one? There are many. I very frequently use Zotero reference management tool. It is very easy, instinctive, and very effective also. You really don't have to bother about the sequence, the way it is to be presented, whether there should be comma, whether there should be zero, full stop as a separator or whatever. You can save a lot of time and your effort by using a proper reference management tool. I strongly recommend people to use free software such as Zotero for writing the research papers or the research thesis. It would save a lot of time and a lot of, it would avoid a number of mistakes also that are committed by us. Okay, now I will give you a general example, typical example of APA style that is to be mentioned as the bibliographic description at the fag end of our research paper. If it is a book, please remember we are always concerned with the last name of the researcher only, last name of the author only. Our emphasis is only on the last name. The last name is fully written, but the first name is never fully written. For example, if I'm quoting the Dr. Ahirrao Manjusha Madam's article, I will simply write Ahirrao, comma, M, not Manjusha, Ahirrao, comma, M, full stop. Very importantly, I will not mention Dr., Mrs., Mr., Shri, etc. These will not be mentioned. And next important, the separator in APA styles is full stop. Please remember. So a separator between the number of descriptors. Dublin core metadata, those people who are familiar with Dublin core metadata know that there are at least 15 identifiers or the what you call descriptors that are described. So of those 15 descriptors, whenever there is the occurrence of second descriptor, it is to be separated with full stop. Okay. And the book title is written in italics. This is important. And the place of publication would first come, followed by the name of the publisher. Place of the publication and the publisher are separated with a semicolon. This is important. And this is how the basic APA style would look like. In fact, if I go with describing the intricacies of how a journal article is to be mentioned, how a magazine article or a website is to be mentioned, it's going to take a lot of time. And probably that may not be really expected of me in this short presentation. So I would restrict myself to only giving you an overview of these things. But one important point, at least I cannot stop myself from presenting this important issue. When, as regards to journal article, please understand that there are at least 2 titles that are to be mentioned. Is it not? When it comes to a book, the title is only one, title of the book. But if it is a journal article, the title of the article as well as the title of the journal, these are the 2 things that are to be mentioned. So in such a scenario, your article title would come first, but it is not italicized. Please remember this. The article title would come first, but it is not italicized. But the name of the journal is to be italicized because the emphasis is always on the title of the book, title of the journal, etc. So the article title is written in normal font, but it is italicized in as the journal title in the italics font. Okay, please keep this particular point in mind. As regard to newspapers, again, the issue is simple. The year, month, and date of publication are to be mentioned because in Indian context, generally we write date, month, and year. But since APA style has been evolved in the American context, so they would rather prefer you to write the year, month, and then date. This is how it is to be mentioned. Of course, there are many other finer details also that are to be taken into consideration. Now here, I pause for a while to ask the organizers of this webinar whether they would ask me to continue with copyright aspects also, or we should put a hold for our presentation here itself. Because copyright itself is also related to plagiarism, is also related to citation, is also very important for to know for all the researchers. But again, it would also require me to present at least for next 20 minutes to at least give the overview of copyright issues. So I asked
okay, sir. Okay, sir, no problem from our side. It will be great if we can talk about copyright for 20 minutes. Yeah.
Great. And I hope the student, I hope the participants are also not really bored with my presentation and they are equally enthusiastic to know a bit of copyright issues also, that normally, because most of the researchers, they find it difficult to distinguish between plagiarism and copyright. Some people even mistake that copyright issues are synonymous to plagiarism issues. No, they are not. In fact, as a matter of fact, the idea of plagiarism comes from copyright, moves away, it takes its own course, and then converges once again back to the issue of copyright. So in a way, the origination is copyright issue, but the domain of plagiarism is much wider than copyright. But again, it converges and comes back into the realm of copyrights. So let's try to discuss about copyright. Whenever we are talking about copyright, two very important acts are to be remembered, two important copyright laws. Because we are gone by the copyrights within India, we should know the Copyright Act of 1957. Please remember, our Indian Copyright Act is 1957. Point number one. This is very important. We should all remember this. But again, we are living in an environment where international laws are equally applicable whenever you are quoting anything, any source material sourced from an international environment. So the copyright laws of United States, which have been promulgated in the year 1976. Please remember this. The Copyright Act of United States of 1976, particularly what you call that clause number 107, 106 and 107, more importantly 107, is to be remembered very clearly. As far as Indian Copyright Act is concerned, the section 53, 54 and even 65, 66, 67, these are some very important points that we need to dwell into. If time permits, I would try to cover even those aspects also, but I'm very doubtful whether I will be having sufficient time to cover all those issues. But if we are talking about copyright, a couple of things are to be understood very clearly. There is this very important concept called fair use and fair dealing as far as copyright is concerned. What is fair use and what is fair dealing? First, let's understand. Because we lack proper understanding of fair use and fair dealing, we unfortunately keep our students away from legitimate access to a lot of copyright material. We say, nahi beta, hum aapko ye iska photocopy nahi de sakte hai. We cannot give you the photocopied material of this particular book because it would be copyright violation. We are not sure what is the fair dealing, what is fair use, and so we will not allow a lot of legitimate activity also, thinking that that would be an infringement of copyright. So let's try to understand what is the technical idea of behind fair use and fair dealing. First, let's understand the distinction between fair use and fair dealing. Fair use is a term used in US copyright, in the United States. Fair dealing is the expression used in UK, in maybe other English-speaking countries such as New Zealand, Australia. I think even in Canada also fair dealing is used, and even in the Indian context also. We use the expression fair dealing. If you go into the intricacies, fair use is slightly different from fair dealing, but on a larger note, we can say fair use and fair dealing are more or less synonymous. More or less, I underline. They are not, but only for the sake of convenience and to save our time, I am trying to equate both of them as similar in their composition. Fair use and fair dealing. Fair dealing is applicable to UK, New Zealand, Australia, maybe Canada. I'm not sure whether Canada is also part of it, but certainly India also. Fair use is the term used in US context, United States of America. Now, what is fair use and fair dealing? You are permitted to use the copyrighted material provided you are undertaking to give a commentary on a particular work. For example, there is one author who has written something. You want to give a commentary. You want to make it more simpler so that a greater number of audience can be reached. So if you're writing a commentary, whether criticizing it or appreciating it, you should be permitted to quote content from a copyrighted material. That is point number one. Second, how do search engines work? Search engines can work only when they are permitted to access the copyrighted material. If copyrighted material is kept out of the purview of the search engines, it's not really going to be possible for the search engines to give you, to return you any search results, search outcomes. Again, criticism also. You may not like the ideas presented by one researcher or whosoever in any particular place, and you would like to criticize it. Now, for you to criticize, you have no other option but to rely and fall back on the original work. So, any criticism demands access to copyrighted material and publishing the ideas presented in the copyrighted material to the audience of the criticizer. That is important. Parody. For the fun of it, you can create a parody. For example, there is a musical tune. You want to create a parody from that musical tune. You should be permitted to have that freedom, that leeway to create your own parody. The original creator of that particular music cannot say, no, I have written a different lyrics for this. You cannot change the lyrics of my copyrighted musical creation. No, for fun, for the sake of fun, such a thing is permissible. Next, news reporting also. If something is to be reported, even if it is a copyrighted material published by the government of India, let's assume, the government of India may mention this C with a round, stating that this is the copyrighted of that particular ministry. But for a news reporter, he has no option but to fall back on that particular whatever, the publication of that ministry. So even for news reporting. And very importantly, for research and scholarship, copyrighted material, scholarship, if you are trying to create a book or publish an article, or maybe discuss this in a classroom situation or a small classroom setting, even in the teaching also, copyright does not stop you from utilizing the material that is copyrighted. Please understand this very importantly. We are all, I'm not saying not all, but quite a good number of us are of a very wrong opinion or of a mistaken opinion that copyrighted material cannot be circulated within the classroom. For example, if a class teacher comes to a librarian and asks, I would like to take Xerox copies or photocopies of 3 pages of 40 copies to distribute to 40 of my students within the classroom. He or she approaches the librarian and requests for a photocopy of 2 pages each, amounting to 40 pages, 40 copies. The librarian says, no, sir, that's not possible. You're taking 40 copies. No, it would be infringement of copyright. Is that really infringement of copyright? No, not at all. If it is within the classroom setting, if it is for scholarship, it is for teaching, it is for debate, it is for discussion, it is for conceptual clarity, it is for using jurisprudential model of teaching in the academics. You have every right to use it, but it should not go beyond the classroom. Those are to be collected back by the teacher and those are to be kept back. That is important. This is point number 1. So all these issues would fall under the purview of fair use and fair dealing. Okay. Now, I will ask you one question. And again, to save time, I will answer it myself. Can copyrighted material be reproduced and distributed? Just as I have already asked you this question. Yes, within the classroom setting, you can certainly do. And is there any limitation? Often, people will ask this question. Is there any limitation? How many pages can be copied? How many pages? Friends, please remember, there is no hard and fast specific number mentioned anywhere, neither in the United States Copyright Act nor in the 1957 Indian Copyright Act. There is no specific number mentioned. But courts go by 4 important criteria. Even those 4 important criteria also I will discuss it. What is very important is the intent. What is the intent? If it is only for the dissemination of knowledge and for enhancement of research and scholarship, you are certainly permitted to that. And what is the extent? Ideally, there is a limit that is levied as 10% of the content. For example, if the book consists of 400 pages, you are not really expected to copy more than 40 pages. Anything more than 40 pages obviously is a malified intention. So 10% ideally, not more than that. And even if it is a 1000-page book also, the maximum limit generally that is strongly recommended in the court of law is not more than 40 pages. Please remember this. If it is only a 100-page book, you cannot go beyond 10 pages. Cannot go. If it is 1000 pages also, you cannot go beyond 40 pages. Okay. Please remember this as a basic rule. Now I am giving you instance, a court case that was run in the Andhra Pradesh High Court a couple of years ago. Now, in the observation, the judge stated that if the fair use supports socially laudable purposes, as mentioned in the Copyright Act of 1976 of United States, because they have borrowed this idea, socially laudable purposes, from the Copyright Act of United States. And they said, if it is really social, for the socially laudable purposes, for example, you want to prevent some epidemic, or you want to improve the life environment or the living conditions of people in your vicinity, then if it is a socially laudable purpose, you will be absolved of claiming that it's a copyright infringement. Okay. The US Copyright Act specifies that the fair use of copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies for the purpose such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, is not an infringement of copyright. This is there in the section 107 of Copyright Act. Okay, so what are the 4 factors that would determine whether there is a serious infringement of copyright or it is done with a positive social motive? The 4 important factors are the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for a non-profit educational purpose. So within the educational setup of an higher education institute, the librarian and the teacher has a very high degree of freedom. Please use the freedom that is given to you under the fair use and fair dealing provision. Do not be afraid of unnecessary copyright complications that may arise. No, it's all your दिमाग का भूत, आपके दिमाग में ये हो, practically ऐसा कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. But you should see to it that all that information that you are distributing should be within the campus. You should not go beyond the campus. You cannot host it on your college website and make it freely accessible to everybody across the globe. No, that would be copyright infringement. But if you do within your classroom environment or within the college campus, you have every liberty to go ahead with that. So the purpose should be non-profit and it should be basically non-commercial and educational in nature. And second, what is the nature of the copyright material that you are trying to copy? For example, if you are copying some Leninger's work on biochemistry or anything of that sort, obviously that's a book of a high repute. So that shows a malified intention on your part. If it is not a malified intention, again, you will be free to go ahead with that. And amount and substantially of the portion used in relation to the copyright work also. As I have told you, not more than 10%. Obviously, if you go to copy, if you go on copying more than 30-40%, obviously your intentions are not really very positive in nature. And the effect of the use upon the potential market on the original copyrighted work. For example, if you use that particular copyrighted material and you distribute it in such a fashion that the saleability of the original work is greatly affected badly in a negative fashion, then you are not expected to do that. If these 4 factors are satisfied, you are free to go ahead without any scruples regarding the copyright issues. Okay. And as regards to copyright issue, these are the 2 things that we should remember. The Berne Convention of 1886. We are all familiar. Actually, the idea of a copyright was mooted in this Berne Convention, and it was in 1886. So that is considered as the cornerstone of any copyright concept or any copyright notion that is circulating even in the modern times. And again, this is a TRIPS agreement. TRIPS agreement of 1994. This is very important. Any academician, I strongly recommend, should take time and at least take an overview of the TRIPS agreement of 1994. What is TRIPS agreement? We all know there are trade-related restrictions related to intellectual property rights. This is called a TRIPS agreement. So again, TRIPS agreement also recommends some stringent punishment in case the copyright is violated. So what are they? One should find time and understand that. What the courts in India hold: reproduction of the whole or a substantial portion of copyright material as such will not normally be permitted, and only extracts or questions from the work, quotations from the work, I beg your pardon, will alone be permitted even as a fair dealing. So this is the crux of the whole issue of copyright. You are not permitted to go ahead to copy unlimited amount of material from any copyrighted material. No, it should be reasonable. And the flip side of copyright also we need to know. We are all aware of this particular symbol, which is known as copyright symbol, is it not? Have you come across this symbol? Flipping it the other way. This is called, can anybody tell me what is this? I'll be really happy if anybody can recognize this symbol.
I guess it is a copyright symbol, sir.
Copyright symbol is on the left. I'm asking you what is present on the right side. The flip side, the flipped one. Copyright when flipped to the other way, it appears this way. What is this? This is called a copy left. Just as there is this notion of copyright, there is this notion of copy left also. Let's all remember this. This is a beautiful idea. There is this open access initiative that was started way back in 2002, and it has gained ground in the latter part of 2003. And this copyleft movement has taken to wings in the year 2004 and 5. This is called copyleft. And with thanks to this copyleft, this GNU, General Public License Agreement, we are all aware of this GNU that was started way back in 1986 or 1990 by one American. I'm not able to remember his name. But this General Public License, that was the first positive step towards freeing up the copyrighted material and making it accessible and available freely in the larger interest of the public. That was a great step taken way back in 1986 when this Unix platform was created. So they thought, Unix is a paid version. We need to come up with some solution which is freely accessible to the users and which the users can maybe customize, suiting to their personal needs. So anyway, we'll not get into that GPL. Another important aspect that relates to copyleft is the Creative Commons license. Friends, whenever you are trying to use any educational resource within your college, within your classroom, I strongly recommend that you ensure whatever the material that you are using falls under either the GPL or under the Creative Commons license. That should be your preferred choice. If only the content that you are desiring is not available under the Creative Commons license or the GPL or under the what you call category of freeware or open source, etc., only then you should fall back onto copyrighted material. Okay. Now, what is Creative Commons? You must be aware that there are 7 stages of Creative Commons agreement in which a person is permitted to share the content created, either the video, image, or whatever, with others, subject to certain conditions. The easiest, the complete freedom that is provided is copyleft, as you can see. But there are certain stages. You are permitted to use that material, but you should acknowledge. You are permitted to use the material without acknowledgement. You are permitted to use the material and even customize it and make some alterations and then distribute it. You are permitted to distribute but not customize. Is prakar, there are some 7 stages of Creative Commons license agreement. You need to go and study the Creative Commons license agreement to understand which particular level it falls, this particular resource falls into. Okay. I'm trying to hurry up because I already know that I have taken a lot of time. So I'm trying to hurry it and not describe everything in a detailed fashion. But just 2 things, which will be, I'm sure, very useful to the researchers. Free text, how to find free to use images. Now, what you need to, we all should know that if you go for searching an image in the Google, it will return you all the images which are copyrighted as well as free to distribute, as well as Creative Commons licensed images and completely copyleft material also. So to know which material you are permitted to use, what you need to do is you have to go to advanced search. Then within the advanced search, there is this particular phrase called usage rights. Please click on the usage rights, and in the drop down, you will have to check which kind of a material you are looking for. Is it completely copyleft material, or maybe open source material, or a freeware, if it is a software, or maybe if you are looking for any material that is falling under Creative Commons. Okay. Now, in YouTube, for example, if there are some educational resources which you would like to showcase to your students, what you need to do? For example, I'm giving you this example. Today in the morning, I was trying to find a video resource for my students of Bilib and Enlib on BibFrame. You must be, those people belonging to library and information science know what BibFrame is. It is now replacing Mark 21. So this BibFrame. Now, if I type for BibFrame, there will be so many BibFrame related educational resources that are available, but I cannot use them freely, or I cannot post them on my website. Then what I need to do, I have to go to this particular point, filters. Now in this filters, if I click on the filters, you will see under the column of features, Creative Commons. Click on the Creative Commons. Now the search results that are returned will be only those which are permitted under Creative Commons. Now that's a shared material, shareable material. You can happily host it on your website. You can share it with your students, even on the open environment also. You need not restrict it within to the classroom or within your college campus. So thank you, because I have controlled myself of not elaborating on many other finer issues, because I know after all our attention span is limited to not more than 45 minutes. But however, I have taken a lot of time. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Hope my presentation will be of some use to the researchers. Oh, I am seeing Dr. Vijay Barfe sir, one of my very good friends. Namaskar Barfe sir. And there are many other people, Hemakant Chaudhary sir and many others also. Thank you all of you for giving me this patient hearing. Thank you, Ahira madam, once again. And this is open for discussion also. In case anybody would like to ask a couple of questions, any number of questions, as a matter of fact, I have no objection, but the organizers would certainly have the time restriction. So keeping in mind the time restrictions, we can go ahead with some question and answer sessions, if that is permitted.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Kanchi sir, for this insightful session. And your words on plagiarism and citation techniques for researchers have helped us to acquire new knowledge and explore more into the subject. That is going to be immense help for all of us. You have talked about the plagiarism, different citation techniques. You have also used various examples to elaborate that. And you have also briefly explained frequently asked questions. And last but not the least, you have also talked about the copyright issue. And again, one new term, that is copyleft also. I hope every participants have taken a bunch of knowledge from today's session. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Kanchi sir, for this knowledgeable session. We will definitely be looking forward for such sessions in future also. I request all participants to please let us know your feedback regarding the session, and I'm going to share the feedback link in the chat box also. And I would like to require Bhakkar sir to put the link in the YouTube description or in chat session. By that time, if anyone have any question, please put in the chat session.
Also, sir, a lot of people are asking if we can share the PPT with
Why not?
them.
Why not? Absolutely. See, there should be no restriction whatsoever when there is this question of dissemination of knowledge. Knowledge किसी के control में नहीं रह सकता. So anything that I have borrowed is basically borrowed from other sources. So this should necessarily be permitted or shared with everybody. So my Ahira madam के साथ मैं share करूँगा, and she can happily distribute it to anybody at any point of time. Let there be no restriction whatsoever on the knowledge. Let's all support the open culture movement. The open culture movement in respect of the knowledge sharing, knowledge dissemination.
That's so kind of you, sir. Kindly share the PPT with Ahira ma'am, and I'll share the PPT along with the certificate to all the participants. Now I'm going to I'm going to share the feedback link in the chat. Kindly put the feedback, and we'll definitely looking forward to know what your suggestions, what your feedback regarding the same. Thank you so much.
Maybe.
If you have any questions, all the audience, if you have any questions, kindly put it in the chat box. we are happy to answer and we're happy to forward it to the Kanchi sir.
Or you may read it out aloud so that everybody knows what is the question. Alternatively, you can unmute the participants and ask them to ask a couple of questions one by one, if time permits.
Okay, sir. Okay. So, Bakkar sir, can you please change the setting of that allowing participants to speak or unmute themselves, if possible?
Yes, just a second, I will do that.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Please, because I strongly recommend that there should be some interactive section as well. Because मैंने बहुत सारे सवाल भी
Sir, I have one question. Excuse me, sir. I have one question about self-plagiarism. What is mean by self-plagiarism and how can we do it?
How can we do it? You're not expected to do. Please, madam, any
How to
sort of
avoid?
plagiarism,
How
you
to
are
avoid?
expected to avoid.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what is self-plagiarism? I think I have already explained in my presentation. I will reiterate what I have already explained. The point is, if you borrow the ideas that have been written by you, but published in some other journal or somewhere else, some time ago, but you are citing them again, you are using that ideas again, but without citing that it has been published in particular journal, it is called self-plagiarism. Simply put, your own published material you are reusing without citing the fact that it has been published elsewhere before. This is called self-plagiarism. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Here
Namaste,
is
sir.
one question. Okay, Preeti, please go on.
नमस्ते मैम। नमस्ते कांची सर, मुझे एक पूछना था कि अगर आपका राइट किया हुआ आर्टिकल है और वो मंजूषा मैम साइट करती है, बाद में उसको कोई और भी साइट करता है, लेकिन जब मैं सर्चिंग करती तो जो तीसरा व्यक्ति है उसका मैं देखती उसने आपको साइटेड नहीं किया है।
Wonderful.
तो
Excellent question.
हाँ, तो मैं किसको साइट करूं? मंजूषा मैडम को साइट करूं या आपको या उनको? क्योंकि मुझे पता ही नहीं कि वो कांची सर का है।
बिल्कुल, एक्सलेंट। ये मेरे हिसाब से बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे रेज किया हुआ है। देखिए, मैं सबसे पहले उन्होंने जो सवाल पूछा, मैं सभी के क्लैरिटी के लिए
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Her question was also in Hindi. If you answer us,
don't worry. I will explain the question in English
kindly
for the convenience of all of you, and then I will give the answer also in English. Okay. Now the question that was posed to me is something like this. For example, I have written an article which was cited by, let's assume, Ahirao Madam, and the third person, for example, Mr. Benson, who is speaking to me now, he happens to read the article written by Ahirao Madam, in which my article is quoted, but he has no access whatsoever to my article directly. So, in such a scenario, whether Mr. Benson should mention Dr. Ahirao Manjusha quoting this particular idea, or he should quote Dr. Kanchi, who is the original source of the information. Please remember, Preeti Patel Madam, since you have asked this question, I am particularly addressing this to you. Please remember, this is a very important question. Your access was only restricted to Ahirao Madam's article only. You have not read my original article. Since you have no access to my article, you are not expected to quote me. You are expected to quote only Ahirao Madam. There are two ways of.
Ahirao Madam की लड़की बहुत अच्छा काम करी है.
Voice interruption, sir.
Wait, somebody is speaking.
काका वेबिनार में ऑलरेडी मैं तो बहुत कर रही हूँ. वहाँ होंगे 10वीं 12वीं में कोई क्लास में मस्त इंग्लिश बोल रही कर रही. तो कुछ नहीं.
हेलो.
कुछ भी कर रही है वहाँ अच्छा कर रही है थोड़ा सा. तो मैं भी कुछ तो कर सकूँ ऐसे मैं बता दूँ तो फिर वहाँ जो.
Now host, please mute everyone except the speaker, so that there will be no interruption.
So the point is, please let's understand this. There are two ways of citing this. What you can say, according to according to Ahirao, in brackets 2003, let's assume, in which she quotes Kanchi, bracket 2005, or maybe 1998, that library and information science is undergoing a radical transformation. Now, what you are trying to say, you have not read Kanchi's original article, but it is quoted by Ahirao in her article in 2005. So this way, you are giving the credits to the original person, Kanchi, and you are also giving credits to Ahirao madam, because you have access to, because you have read the article written by Ahirao. You have not read the original article by Mr. Kanchi. So you have no rights whatsoever to quote about Kanchi. Okay, is this clear? Our citation is always restricted to what you have read, what you have access to. But if you have read one article, but that article quotes some other article which you have not read, you cannot quote that. The best thing that you can do is, you can quote, according to Ahirao 2005, library information science is undergoing radical transformation, as reported by Kanchi in his article published in so-and-so journal. Now, what you are saying, this idea was borrowed by Ahirao madam from the article written by Dr. Kanchi in some other journal. So, but your quotation is finally going to be, the bibliographic description is going to be only of Ahirao madam. Your bibliographic quotation will not have any details about Dr. Kanchi's article. Is this clear? How librarian can identify the purpose of researcher is purely non-commercial. There is no way. That is the reason why the user, if he is an outside user, you will not give any copyrighted material. But if the student is requesting for a reading within the campus, you should be absolutely free enough, bold enough to provide the copyrighted material, even by photocopying and providing it within the campus. But please ensure that as the student leaves the campus, he deposits that photocopied material back to the librarian. But there is no way you know the true intent of anybody who is borrowing material from you. So the thumb rule is not more than 10%. You will not photocopy anything more than 10%. If some teacher comes and asks, sir, ye kitab, we require this particular book in our library, sir, get 5 copies of it and then get it bound and make it available in our college library. You should first and foremost refuse. You should say, no, madam. If the book is available in the market, I will not disrobe the author of his legitimate right of making money from his publication. I would rather prefer to buy 5 copies of the book from the market and allow the author to gain some monetary benefit out of it. If the book is out of print, I will wait for the publisher to reprint and make it available if it is out of stock. But if the book is not available at all, it has gone into the category of rare category books, then only for the circulation within the campus, I will make 4 or 5 copies and I will stamp on it very specifically for circulation within the campus only. It should be explicitly stamped on those photocopied material. Is this clear?
Sir, excuse me, sir. I have one doubt, sir.
Yes.
Sir, let us take, sir. I'm one research scholar. My topic is on engine, sir. IC engines. Okay. I belongs to mechanical engineering department.
Good.
Okay.
Whenever. Your voice is not audible, gentlemen.
Hello, sir. Now it's clear, sir.
Yes. Now sir, it's audible. Whenever.
Yeah. I'm doing research on four-stroke single cylinder. Yes, the spark ignition engine. This is the engine name. Engine name itself. This much of name is there, sir. Whenever I send any performance or efficiency like that, the title itself is coming into the plagiarism, sir. I am getting this much of plagiarism. Then how I cannot avoid the main engine name? that I cannot avoid the name of the engine because that itself contains 6 words. Then how I can publish my paper, sir? I'm not getting, sir.
రెడ్డి గారు అలాంటి ఎలాంటి ఇబ్బంది కూడా దాంట్లో లేదు. అది ప్లేగరిజం కేటగిరీలోకి రాదు. నేను స్పష్టంగా మీకు చెప్తున్నాను. నేమ్, టైటిల్ ఇలాంటివి ఏవైతే ఉంటాయో దే డు నాట్ ఫాల్ అండర్ ద కేటగిరీ ఆఫ్ ప్లేగరిజం. సో మీ పేపర్ని ఎవరైతే చెక్ చేస్తున్నారో ఆ వ్యక్తికి ఈ అవగాహన లేదనమాట. మీరు అతనికి చెప్పాలి, ఏమండి మీరు ఎప్పుడైతే చెక్ చేస్తున్నారో వీటిని అన్నింటినీ అన్టిక్ చేయండి. నేమ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఇంజిన్ షుడ్ బి అన్టిక్డ్. Some people could be surprised that I am speaking some foreign language. I'm talking to my friend Mr. Damodar Reddy, who probably hails from the same place as of mine. So I'm talking in my mother tongue. So Reddy garu meeku ardhamautundi kada. If it is the name of the engine, yes, it cannot be categorized under the similarity index. The similarity report should completely avoid this particular thing. So you should tell the whosoever, your PhD guide or maybe the university librarian, कि सर इसको जो है आपको अनटिक करना है, अनदेखा करना है. You should overlook this particular thing while searching. That you need to mention it explicitly to them. Is it clear to you, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions?
We have a few questions in the chat box. I'll read it out for you, sir. Is there any rule book for guidelines for librarians with respect to what to be excluded before doing plagiarism check? Can you please share, sir?
There is, as such, there is a lot of material that's available on the internet. I do not know if anybody has published any such kind of a book as a guiding principle for the librarians. But what I can tell you, what are to be avoided is explicitly stated in the PhD circular, PhD 2016 circular of UGC also. You may just have a look at it. They have specifically mentioned what are to be excluded. So there is a reasonably good list of things that are mentioned in what are to be excluded. Just go through it. Even if you take into consideration all the double quotations, any material that is written within the double quotations, all the general rules, principles, commonly known facts, figures, that Everest is the tallest what you call mountain peak in Himalayas or in the world. This is a well-known fact. Now you cannot raise a finger and point out that this has been found in the similarity index. No, that is wrong. Similarly, any notions that are commonly known, that Earth revolves around the sun, this is a known fact. Or the theory of relativity was conceived by Albert Einstein and presented to the world in 1905 as a special theory and in 1917 as general theory. Now, these are all known facts. You have to exclude those things. So, if you can go to the UGC website and download that 2016 PhD circular, you will have a very greater detail about that.
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Dr. Muthu. It says, sir, if we have published a small part of our thesis in a journal, can we include the same in our thesis during submission of thesis?
Absolutely. But necessarily that should be mentioned in your what you call reference list as well as the bibliography list. I'm sure you people are aware of the distinction between what is the reference list and what is the bibliography list. You are all very much clear about the distinction. So it should necessarily appear in the appending bibliographic list or the reference list. Please remember, please see to it that you make a mention of it. And even the in-text citation should also be necessarily there of the journal article that was published, which now forms part and parcel of your thesis. It should be mentioned. But you can use it as it is without any problem in your thesis.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Mandar Joshi is there. How librarian can identify the purpose of researcher is purely non-commercial?
That's what I have just answered this question. If you happen to listen to my present point attentively a couple of minutes ago, I informed that there is no way we can read the intention of the person who is coming to borrow some information from us. You really never know. So the only option is, If the usage is within your what you call it, college campus or the university campus, point number one. And if the person is a genuine academic, what you call admitted student of your college, now you will have greater leeway for them. You will give a greater what you call benefit of doubt, and hope that their purpose is purely academic. But if some outsider comes to your academic library and says, "Sir, I would like to get this information, and will you please provide this information? I would like to take a printout of 40 pages of this book," then you really do not know what he is going to do with those 40 pages of material. He may use it for a commercial purpose. So you would say simply, no, it's not permitted. Anything beyond the college campus for an outsider, it's beyond my purview. You would refuse to entertain it.
Thank you, sir. So we have a question from YouTube, and it is from Nanabhau Thakre. Sir, while checking the plagiarism through online open source software, that time we get the different results, right?
Absolutely.
So then how can we consider the authentic one?
That's what I tell you. The only reliable things officially across the world are only two databases. One of Turnitin, the second one is of Urkund. Technically speaking, we probably see at one particular year, Turnitin has a better database and Urkund has a lesser database. But the next year, Urkund will have a better database and Turnitin has a lesser database. But more or less, technically speaking, these two are recognized standard databases which have a wide what you call a domain of searching the content. So unless and until, see, even within the Turnitin and Urkund, if you go for Urkund similarity report and then compare the same thing with the Turnitin similarity report, it's certainly going to be differing by at least by 2 notches. If it is 35% in some place, it could be 33% or 37%. It is going to be, there is bound to be some difference. You cannot avoid that.
Also, sir, is there any free plagiarism software for educational purpose?
For educational purpose, again, the issue is, as I've already pointed out during my presentation, all free softwares come with a caveat, some shortcoming. The issue is either they will restrict the searching to either 1000 words, 500 words, or at the most up to 5000 words. So physically you will have to copy it 5000 words and then check it and then take out those 1000 words and again copy the rest of the 1000 words and then copy it to do a plagiarism check and all. It's going to be quite cumbersome. Point number one. Second issue, free softwares will necessarily have very limited database. They're not competent enough to search the databases of all the university libraries, all the data uploaded on ETD repositories, etc. So the report generated by free softwares is not really very reliable. Please remember this.
Sir, can you unmute yourself, Bhakkar sir?
Yes, please.
Okay, I think I thought there is a problem that you cannot unmute yourself.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I would also like to thank Bhakkar sir for helping in the session out, and we are
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. No problem. I am part of the organizing committee. So let me thank first our resource person. Sir, sir, we are very thankful for your valuable session during the since last 2 hours, near about 2 hours. Our organizing committee has decided to felicitate our resource person through virtual recognition for sharing their valuable time and knowledge. Sir, as we gathered here virtually, we cannot offer you memento, bouquet, etc. So this is our small token of love. I request our resource person, Dr. Kanchi sir, to kindly accept the same. I am sharing your virtual recognition certificate, sir. You can see your virtual recognition certificate on the screen. All participants are also requested. Sir, it is requested you to kindly accept the same.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. We will shortly mail this email the same to you. Thank you. Thank you, Ahirao madam.
Thank you, sir, for this nice session.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Can we conclude, sir, now?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Excuse me, before we conclude, dear organizers, this is my humble request from my side, and also from the side of all the participants here. If you don't mind, could you please share the contact number of Professor Dr. Kanji? He should be a real learner, and he is really a great teacher. He has taught us so many things, though we are in the field of research for so many years. What we have got from him are really new certain things. So thank you very much, Dr. Kanji sir. You have been a real source of inspiration. This is Dr. Benison from St. John's College, Palamkottai. Palamkottai is in the southernmost part of Tamil Nadu. It's otherwise called as the Oxford of South. I'm sure that you will be very happy to share the contact number of Dr. Kanji. Thank you very much, Dr. Manjusha, and every organizer here.
Thank you so much. Madam, please do share my contact number with everybody. I have no objection also.
Okay, sir. I'll do that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, all participants. Thank you, dear Kanji sir. Bakar sir.
Yes. So we take leave. Thank you, madam.